it's how we can harness that energy, right? And cultivate it and do more with it.
Well, Charlie, I'll tell you, one of my biggest prayers recently is just keep bringing me the people that can help me with my purpose.
I like that. Yeah, yeah.
Like, well, the thing that keeps coming up consistently for me is the word friendship, because it's not just about like what can we do as individuals anymore. Even that sort of like Joseph Campbell, like individual ascent up the mountain, like we come out of the cave so that we can be in community. And the only way things are really going to shift is if we do it in community and collaboration. Because we got to replace this notion of like it's all competitive, that you have to beat the person next to you. It's like, well, what if we work with the person next to us?
And then once in a while we can play a game and we can win, but then that's not the all ultimate thing. We're playing the game to challenge each other to be better. So we're not fragile, like, all right, once in a while I do want to play table tennis against you. I'm gonna take you out in table tennis, Charlie,
Yeah, yeah, and there's a place for that, right? Because there's a place to improve yourself when you have kind of like that resistance back and forth with somebody like a rival, right? Like, it could be like a fun rival, but it doesn't have to be like the one person win, one person loses.
Right.
Well, are you familiar with the notion of infinite games? Infinite game versus finite game. Like in a traditional finite game, whether it be like sports or debate, the idea is to win, right? So normally you have a clear set of rules, and then there's a clear winner and a clear loser. The infinite game is all about keeping the game going.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So there's no so the difference between a discourse and an argument would be like, I'm here to get it right. But in a discourse, I'm here to listen to you, see what I can learn, and continue my conversation. Like that's the real idea. And I think we're at a point right now where collectively we're starting to see that if we continue to just play like finite games, we're fucked. Because no one's gonna win.
Exactly.
It's an idea that it has to start turning a little bit into this idea of, well, what's the infinite game here? How do we start working together?
Yeah, that's funny you say this, because like infinite game, Charlie, is why MMOs are so popular, right? You think about why Grand Theft Auto is so much, because it's like you can keep doing it and keep doing different things. The Free Guy, we were just watching that, right? It's talking about Free Guy, right? Like we love this MMO because we're actually literally in an MMO. Like, look at this.
Well, think about what Earth really is. It's like it is an MMO because it's like what your choices are. Your reality is 100% based upon what choices you make, which is basically what MMOs are.
So right before this, like I was doing VR, and that's when like that reality and the subconscious was really kind of starting to blur, right? And then the idea that if we're making virtual realities and trying to build equipment for us to feel the virtual world, but here we are kind of already living in a world, right? Because we're trying to mimic what we're seeing today.
Like we're gonna feel like something is vibrating.
Yeah, exactly. To actually feel some kind of connection with the simulated world in the VR. And so what was really interesting, it's almost like we're going backwards to feel a different world where today we already feel and have so much input in our own world where we don't even want to be involved with it.
Yeah. I mean, that's like the whole notion of Ready Player One in general is like, we've gotten too much. We don't want to feel this shit anymore. So let's create a completely different, reality that we can step into.
Right. So what we're talking about still is, the idea of infinite world versus infinite games versus finite games, right? Which is really interesting because that's the same idea of like what we were doing with games too. Is casual gaming also played off of the idea of infinite gaming, right? Because it's the same thing you're doing, but it has so much. I mean, it's the same repeatable thing, but it has kind of like a level of like wanting to keep doing it forever, right? And it's just a simple idea. So
wait, go ahead, Charlie.
Yeah, so the idea of like the MMOs now is we live in an MMO, but we're going into a virtual reality world where those games are finite games. They're just a one story. You are, a subset of these.
Somebody programmed that in too, by the way.
Exactly, right. And so, we're going to other people's realities and we're players in their world. But when I started to make games,
it's like magic.
Exactly. So when you start to create the game itself, you start to appreciate the idea of the shadow self, right? Because you need shadow characters when we go back now is there's a place for competition, but in the end of the day, it's actually when the both of them work together is when they can create better worlds, right? And so this is kind of where I feel like we're at now is we're learning to integrate all of our shadows while still learning to, have like good competition, but to get better, right?
Well,
Not
yeah,
to
there's so much power in that too, because a lot of people look at shadow as like the quote unquote bad parts of ourselves, which is not
right,
exactly what it is. It's the unexpressed parts of ourselves.
exactly.
When you look into allowing those places within us to express, it can be super creative.
Yeah, and like and to kind of put a sacred thread through what we're talking about. We're doing this divine masculine show. We're like for Cosmic Lab, we're just gonna start just doing the divine masculine exploration, right? And you're here, like you actually facilitate men's groups and you do all this stuff. You have so much share, but like, how does gaming apply to being a man, right? Like I constantly feel the archetype that like I play as a man, the hero, the king, the philosopher, the saint, the warrior, the lover, the artist, right? Like I feel the magician, dude. And like we're playing a game as a men, right? Yeah, women got their thing too, right? And non-binary, whatever. But we have there's something going on with we're playing a game already as men.
Yeah, of course. And that's not even necessarily our game. It's what's been culturally adapted for us to believe is the way even the masculine is to be perceived. Because even in the notion of masculine and feminine is really still kind of made up within it of itself. If you break everything down to pure basics, it's positive and negative. It's if you have a push and you have a pull. Period. Right. Like that's it. You have spirit and you have matter. Right. But we break down what a perceived image of a man should look like. And I'm starting to find, we're down at the beach right now, and I've been doing this thing called ecstatic dance for a while. And ecstatic dance, we have it every week down here in Venice. And what it is a place for us to move our bodies freely in any expression of what comes up for us in general, period, and sentence. And what I love so much about that is it becomes an embodiment practice. So if I see, a beautiful woman dancing, the old programmed version of me used to say like, well, how do I get that? Like, oh, that's sexy. I want that. How do I get it?
Right? I want it. I want that.
I mean, I'm just being real, but the something happened to me a couple years ago where I started working on, well, what is that? And how do I embody that within myself? So if I see a woman being extremely sensual, it's like, okay, cool. How can I feel that within my own body? How can I embody? And when I started moving in that direction, a couple things started happening. Number one was like, I started feeling in my feminine, which made me actually feel way more confident. And then,
dude, I just came with a new word too on that note. Hold it, fem body. We're like tapping into our feminine. We're fem body.
I love
that. Body.
No, I love that because it is. It's like literally like trying it on for size. When I was in acting school, one of the things we would talk about is like trying a character on. Like putting yourself into the body of someone else, embodying what that is, right? But you can embody energy, embody sensuality, you can embody joy, you can embody courage, you can embody these things.
Or sadness.
Yeah. We used to do this exercise called rasa boxes. Fucking awesome, part of my language. Awesome exercise. Where rasa means flavor. And you would go into a particular flavor and it was all in Sanskrit. So it'd be like karuna, sadness. You would go try on sadness. And then going from there, putting on vira, which would mean like courage, like putting on courage on top of sadness. And you learn the layers of humanity and how to play to the layer of a complex human being by trying on
different stuff. Dude, by the way, he's made a comment about this. I actually met him. He was teaching yoga classes, right? At one of my favorite yoga studios where I ended up studying Veda Yoga with Kumi. And he was teaching there. And I would go to his classes and his classes were so good. Like I'm very discerning with people teach yoga classes, but the way he teaches, his evolution as a teacher, how he brings in things that's going on, and he's so like well read. He reads what's going on in current events. Like he's like just so in tune. So he brings that to the table as a yoga teacher. But more so than a yoga teacher, I think you talk about is embodying the energy that you want to bring people towards. I think that's what makes him a good yoga teacher. And any facilitator, right? It's like you got to show the path for the people to go.
Right. And then on a larger scale, we can all keep feeding into what's going on in the world and what we don't like, and being in response to narrative constantly, being in response to a COVID narrative, being in response to a Ukraine-Russia narrative, where eventually we start getting very, 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 very clear on what it is that we want to create in the world, and then create that narrative by creating a new story, a better story. And the only way that I believe that we replace the current paradigm is by creating one that makes it up.
I
Yeah, we
agree.
need a meta story now, right? Like we
Yes.
need a meta story, not Facebook. Hey, Facebook, you don't own that shit.
Yeah, we want to own stories, right? And this is all about, being able to be the creators of our own stories.
100%.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we're doing with Cosmic Labyrinth. Even like this, whatever we're doing, we're with this thing, we're trying to set an example. So you're coming on, and I want you to share more about what the men's work that you're doing, because you guys are doing something weekly. So people might see this, they might want to join if they're in LA. But maybe you get inspired wherever you are. We're gonna highlight all kinds of people, but we are like, how do we like create an encyclopedia, like a today encyclopedia of wisdom and curiosity and dynamic learning and science and spirituality? Like, how do we create an encyclopedia today?
Yeah. How do we create sort of a new dialogue along, right? Like that's the real question. I don't know that I have the answer to that sitting here right now. That's
You know who has the answer? This thing right here. What is that?
Ooh, what is that?
That's
Is that a mango?
It's a mango.
Oh, that looks so good. Oh, that's yummy mango.
That's the answer right there. This thing is the answer.
Was that some nice
Right?
homegrown stuff? Homegrown mangoes?
that is an organic mango.
That right there, the seed. On the seed is the nectar, the juice, the rasa, right? So much rasa there, so much just pure amrit, right? Like literally, that's freaking nectar of the gods. And how did that happen? It happened through transmutation. Like literally, shit had to be converted into this. But so sunlight was a part of it, right? We brought light. The light was brought to it, but also it was in the underworld. Like it had to start in the underworld.
It was buried. It was buried. We buried it. Right.
And we had to come out.
And it
Come
comes
out.
out from the darkness into the light.
Yeah.
So what are the men's group that you're doing? What's up with that? Like what? So they're doing, dude. They're doing like ice. It's really cool. You guys share the ice stuff that you guys do.
Well, let me talk to that regard. We don't just drop in and start talking about what's going on in our lives. With this particular men's group, it's called Brothers Men's Group, mainly because it was started by myself and then three brothers. So I mean, it kind of makes sense. But the idea is when we meet, we first and foremost we get into the body. I've found just through yoga, through my meditation, and also a lot actually through my acting practice, that like everything lives inside here. And if we're caught too much up in here and always trying to express from that place, a lot of the times it just goes into relation with what our patterns of programming seem to be, rather than what's actually happening in our heart. And so when we meet, the first thing we do is get into the body. So it's a full hour workout. And then after the hour workout, it's done Tabata style. If anyone's watching doesn't know what Tabata is, it's like a 20-second on, 10-second break, 20-second on. And you're switching, doing different things. So let's say I'm doing, bicep.
It's like
curls
high
for-
intensity.
Yeah, it's high intensity interval training. They call it HIIT is the acronym for it. And you're doing that for an hour so that you get into the body. And then we take it into the ice. So we do an ice plunge after that. It's a 3-minute ice plunge for everybody. And the idea is then to see if you can find that calmness in a place of discomfort. And I mean, that portion of it, I could go in, 20 minutes just on that, because the importance of being able to learn how to be uncomfortable in a physical, to be able to be in a place of discomfort and be okay has myriad effects for your life. Because when shit starts hitting the fan in our actual physical reality, now you've had the opportunity to learn how to get into the body and be able to relax into that. So the vicissitudes of life, the sort
Whoa,
of yeah,
vicissitude.
my $20 word for the day, vicissitudes. Those ups and downs of life, they don't feel so extreme because you've gotten comfortable at being in discomfort, right? So that's a big part of the ice. And then we do breath work, which then gets the entire group together. And I lead the breath work, and I've been a breath facilitator for a couple of years now. But
You breathe?
yeah, it's not, I've been doing this thing my whole life. Turns out, crazy.
And as a person that does go to yoga, like, when we went through the part where you have to be uncomfortable with the setting and you have to like breathe through it, like that's one of my favorite part of any
Same.
routines. Yeah, like I really enjoy that part of like really focusing on just what's uncomfortable, but that level that you're working on getting better, is kind of like the most rewarding kind of feeling for me.
Well, I mean, to share very briefly, a little 2-minute diatribe. When I was a little boy, I was extremely afraid of the cold and I hated it. Like I grew up in Massachusetts, couldn't stand the cold. My mom likes to tell this
Clam
story.
chowder.
Back in chowder. I have a twin sister and a brother who's only a year older, so there's 3 little Irish kids, And my mom and dad are out shoveling snow one day, and all of a sudden Adam has disappeared. I'm just gone. My mom can't find me. She doesn't know where I am. And she goes and looks inside, and she sees that there's like a trail of my clothes. There's like a boot here.
Oh my
a mitten there,
god.
and it led down to the basement. We had one of those old wood fire stoves, and I was just sitting by the stove going, cold, cold. So I tell that story because my mom was like, we knew at that early age you had no business being in the cold, being in Massachusetts. And I had such a strong aversion to the cold that I tried to stay away from it. And in essence, what you do with anything, if it's confrontation that you're afraid of, you're going to try to avoid it. And then confrontation owns you. The cold owns you. You become beholden to it. And so when you start introducing that discomfort into your life in a safe way, in a pragmatic, practical way, in a safe way, it then starts to change your relationship to that thing.
Right.
So if you don't like discomfort, it starts to change the relationship to that discomfort.
Yep.
You're afraid of altercations, start to change your feeling towards altercations, where you actually start to like, now I did the ice bath today and I just had COVID last week. It was my first.
Oh my god, get away from me. Ah. Oh my god. He's got the COVID. He's got the COVID. Charlie, what do I do?
I'm negative. I tested negative yesterday.
I thought you were a positive guy.
Hey.
I thought you were positive. Huh? Are you F? Are you positive or negative? Huh? Okay.
No, but I say that because like even like today, like I was excited about getting in the ice bath. My relationship to the ice has changed. Where now I actually almost kind of crave it.
Whoa.
And I think that's like that's a huge thing for that's not even a masculine or a feminine thing. It's just it's a human thing. Like if we can all kind of it requires us to be uncomfortable to look at some of the deeper patterning and programming of the subconscious, because there's going to be some shit that we don't like. But it's a requirement that if you want to actually be making these decisions that then move to more infinite style games, that you've dealt with your own pattern and program. Or else it's like pushing your cognitive will up against a wall and just recreating more shit that you don't want to see.
Right.
So I say that then leads us into our actual section where now we've gotten into the body, right? So that's getting into the body, and we've gotten into our discomfort, right? And then when we go into the breath work, it's about to get co-resonance. Because when you do breath work in a syncopated way with other human beings, it literally is like harmonic resonance where you start to connect. I mean, like the hearts actually connect in the group. So now you feel in a position where honestly you feel like safe. I think that's really, it's a pretty basic word, but it's really true. It's like you come into a place of safety where now you can express from a place that's not all up here, it's from here. And you can be held in that place. And that's what's important, I think, in our groups, is that people feel safe to be able to be in a space where they can articulate what's going on with them. Because that, in essence, typically leads to a breakthrough that, and primarily I see people know.
On there too is that we what I've noticed about him and Connor and some of the other people who facilitate this group, they're very playful. Like they make so many jokes. They're like really jovial, right? Like they like know how to turn even the darkest whatever into like music or laughter or a joke, and like it's just like they don't take themselves seriously, but they are incredibly serious. And I think that is such a unique factor that like I've been a part of many men's groups and like really big ones and smaller ones. And it's really not often that you notice where there's a joyful play and laughter and silliness.
Yeah, the angels fly because they take themselves lightly. And that's one of my
Yeah.
favorite, one of my favorite
Yeah.
quotes. And there's such truth to that because like, yes, the work is important, but never does it have to be super serious. And to that regard, you tie in sort of like the shadow elements being this thing that have been unexpressed, right? And then tie in this idea that if you give them a safe space to do so, not only can they be expressed, but there is fertilizer. It's the most of the amazing creative endeavors that I've had have come out of that space.
Oh yeah. Can you still see us?
No, you guys cut out.
Or you can hear us, right?
Yeah, I can still hear you.
I'll be
You-
back. Oh look, we're back.
Okay, there you go.
By the way, have you,
Hello.
well, can you hear us right now?
Yeah.
Hey, what's going on?
Good.
Can you hear that? Hey, Charlie.
No.
Did you hear that?
No.
Okay. Charlie's a weirdo. You hear
I
that?
am.
Good, we need more weirdos.
Welcome to the party.
So by the way, I gotta share this with you guys and everybody who's like watching this. Like, one of the things I love too, me and Adam have been doing this thing for quite some time now, where we go on a walk on the beach together. And on the walk on the beach, we have philosophical talks and flow, and we connect with brotherhood. We connect with our inner fathers, our inner grandfathers, our inner kids. And I think like just being able to like find time to do that, like with Adam, has been super evolutionary for me because he has his personal growth going on and he's finding ways to express himself in the world and do something meaningful in the world. And I am too. But then when we come together, we like retune with each other. Like, oh yeah, like we're instruments, divine
Yeah.
instruments.
Yeah, I think that's also part of what's so important about what we do in the men's group is because there's this notion of like breaking down what community is. It's calm, which means to be with, and unity means oneness, right? And so when we come into community, we literally remember.
Are you sure you're not saying commie, bro? You better not be a commie, man. Dude, he campaigned for Arnold Schwarzenegger when he ran for governor.
He's far
He
from
was
a,
a campaign on the campaign
Arnold's
team.
far from a commie. Arnold's far from a commie. But no, man, like you remember. The more we remember, we start to come into that again. Like it's a less inclined place to be susceptible to pattern programming and fear. It's like you come into co-resonance, this idea of like, oh, you're kind of going through a lot of the same things I'm going through. I like to say it's universal themed individual stories. Like everyone knows what it feels like to be betrayed. Everyone knows what it feels like to betray. You know what anger is, you know what
Right.
sadness is. We have these things that we think that like we're experiencing all of this by ourselves. And the more we come into whether it's a walk with your friend on the beach or a men's group that you have a conversation with a stranger, by the way, who you may not know at all, and you find out that like, wait a second, we actually have a lot of things in similarity.
Oh yeah. The bridges, you can always build a bridge. And that bridge could be cosmic too, right? It can be metaphysical. It doesn't have to even, sometimes it could be playing music together. Like sometimes my favorite moments to connect with you, Adam, and even with you, Charlie, is when we're just making tunes. And we're like starting to ride each other's waves like that. And we're like, it's so beautiful. And we don't share any ideology or any agenda.
Because that's non-frontal neocortex communicating. It's not from the discerning part of your brain. It's like that's why dance is so cool, because dance you're in communication with skipping the judgment center of your brain. When you get into a flow state dancing, there's no
yeah.
It's no, I'm in a continuous
this.
dialogue.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I love how when we're doing music, it has like more of a we're harmonizing, but we're not using our like mental brain. We're really going into a space of like emotions, and then it's all about like writing and understanding. Kind of, it's like a nonverbal communication, right?
Yeah, it's nonverbal communication. Charlie, are you familiar with ecstatic dance? Have you ever done it?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I love it. It's great.
Well, I mean, like it's a real testament to that's what it, like that's what ecstatic dance is about. It's about giving your body a way to express itself without words, and you'll find, at least I'll speak for myself anecdotally, but for men, we have so much trapped emotions and so much shit that we're so scared to dive into that when you start moving the body at first, it feels super awkward. you know, and it can really be, you talk about that discomfort,
Oh, yeah.
it can be really uncomfortable for us to like move into our hips. You know, like,
Yeah.
you know, we have this sexy friend. He's like a sexy guy. He's like this really good looking guy. And he can really get into his hips and shake around, you know, and he's triggering for people. You know, like other men feel really uncomfortable around him, you know?
I want to do that. That feels good, actually.
Yeah. No, I love it because
Oh
I
my
used
God.
to, I love going to Latin dancing, and so they use their hips a lot.
Same time.
Yeah, and it is. It's such an important way for us to learn how to communicate. Because we again also like
Yeah, there
when I'm
you go,
dancing with
Indy.
somebody and I'm in flow with somebody.
Indian twerk.
Yeah, let's see it twerk. Let's get a little turnaround. Let's see it twerk.
Yeah. There you go. Move those hips.
You got to give the people what they want to see.
This feels good, bro.
It does,
Like,
isn't it?
rotating your hips, like moving your hips around,
I do it all the time. It really helps.
and even doing this.
Are you thrusting the universe?
Crossing the ocean.
Pressing the air. Yeah, I do a lot of body movement. I do a lot of I'm an acupuncturist, plus I do a lot of body massage. So I understand kind of where there's stagnation, there's a lot of pain. And when people move it, the stagnation goes away. So I've always kind of also for myself, like I wanted to learn why I was having problems in my own back or my own shoulders. And I would kind of massage it, but then also do the movement to release it, right? Because it wasn't
Yeah.
just about like having someone keep giving you a massage and then you keep going back to the bad posture. But what was I doing to kind of release those kind of blockages in my own body? And so I mean, you put that to a beat, you do that to a beat, and you start to moving, trying to like release. It's basically ecstatic dancing, right? Like so.
Well, you know, it's been really cool as Indy keeps his hip thrust going.
He's got some blockages he needs to release apparently.
Well, at dance here in Venice Beach, it used to be indoors before the pandemic. Ecstatic dance was at least, and because of the pandemic, it moved outside. And two things happened with that. Number one, it made them economically way more feasible because they weren't paying any overhead. So it really helped them economically. But
Nice.
also it put exposure out there to
Yeah.
ecstatic dance and what it is. And people on the beach, they're walking by, and sometimes like a little more toughish people will come by, you know, and they'll like be like,
Yeah.
you know, but then they start kind of seeing like, and you start to see the faces change a little bit, and they're like, I see you. All right.
You know what I've been doing? When like people on the periphery, I'll be on the periphery, and people will be curious. I'll be like, "You should come next week," and they're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
really? I'll come. I can come." And like, "You can come. You can join."
Yeah.
And they're like, "What?"
Yeah. Because it, you know, a big word, you know, my website is humanpermissionslip.com. And I think something really great happens when you get into your own silliness and you get into your own play and you're really in it. Like, look at these dogs, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
when you're in it, you give other people permission to do the same. You know?
Yeah.
And
The first time I heard the word permission, like that changed kind of the whole game too, because we know this is kind of what we grew up with, right? This idea that society tells us what we can't do, never what we can do. So we're just have all these things where we cannot do. So suddenly we're like afraid to do everything. So I totally understand kind of the idea that permission slip.
Yeah, well, acceptance and allowance is a big thing with at least what I notice in men's work is we do a particular part of the session where we're doing eye gazing. It's a 3-minute eye gaze, and then a prompted question, and you stay in the person's eye while listening for them to respond to the question, and then the question shifts, and you have a question, and they just listen to you. And so you have and again, it could be somebody that's a stray. I just slipped down. I just get a little more comfortable here.
That looks like a nice sand chair, right?
My sand chair just disappeared. No, but you have a human being that you just met, and you're being so held by this person, you know, and it starts to give people that word. It's that permission, you know, that permission to actually express like some of the darker shit that you're going through. And again, when that permission then starts coming up over and over and over and over again, we see people being like, dude, this person was going through the same thing I'm going through. Or another answer will be like, I can't believe how similar our stories were
Yeah,
over and over again. And it's because of permission. It's because they feel safe to be able to actually express what's going on. And when you do that, you're like, oh, well, I guess we aren't so different, you know? And I personally do believe that there's like a drive right now to separate people. I do. I think there's
I
something that's happening
agree.
on the earth. You can name it
Yeah,
whatever you want to call it. If you want to call it corporate press, whatever you want to call that entity. But there's an effort to make people think that we have way more indifference than we do similarity.
I agree. Yes, because there's a lot of labeling. There's a lot of like separation. You know, it just there's always I feel like there's a message. I'm like, no, we're just regular people having the same shit happen to all of us all at the same time. But you know, depending on our personal experience, we see it differently. You know,
Yeah.
I do astrology, and so I also love to look at the idea that like there's like a cosmic clock, and we're all kind of experiencing things together to kind of give us that connection, but in a way, it's like here are 1,000 solutions of one problem that we've been running into, rather than one person is getting all the answers. Like, like it's not how life is. Like life is about everyone just finding their own solution to something. So
Right.
so that's the beauty of like being able to I love thinking of the idea that we're like puzzle pieces. And the most intricate, beautiful puzzles are the ones where all the puzzle pieces are different and they look different and they have so that not one is everyone is unique, right? And so you really have to think about where to put it. But the idea that if you can't be your own puzzle piece, then you're not able to kind of connect with everybody else to make the puzzle, right? And so it's
Yeah.
about us expressing the best version of ourselves together to make us be this beautiful puzzle that is meant to express itself.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. I mean, another metaphor that would be similar is like if the heart cell tried to be a liver cell, it
Yes.
wouldn't work out so well.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yes. Yes.
I'm a liver cell. No, it's identity crisis with the cells. That would be a funny sketch, dude. Of like cells having identity crises.
Yeah, that would be
I'm a
funny.
heart cell. I'm a heart cell, but I identify as a lung cell.
And so it hangs down and it does what it does in the liver cell, and it's like, no, you're doing the wrong thing. But I identify it as this, but I keep doing this. I'm like, then you're not meant to be here. Go back to where you probably are best served.
Yeah, and that
Yeah.
and that again then goes into I'll share something with you guys. When I was 25 years old, I went to I think the first time I didn't get hammered on New Year's. I went to a yoga studio that I had started my training at, and they did like an all night thing. And as we were going to the 12 o'clock hour, there was a yoga class. And at the beginning of the yoga class, you went up and you grabbed a piece of paper out of a box that was like your word for the year. And I remember I was like, I'm going to get love, or I'm going to get joy or abundance. And I remember I go and I grab the piece of paper and it's discernment.
Whoa.
And I'm like, that's bullshit. Let me do
Can I do a do-over?
But the thing is, discernment became like the magic word for the second half of my 20s, because it's like you have to have the proper discernment to see what is yours, what has been implanted in you, and what actually resonates with your heart. Because if you are that puzzle piece that's trying to be another puzzle piece,
Right.
then you're actually not helping the larger image, right?
Exactly.
But if you know what your puzzle piece is and how it fits, that also leads to purpose. Then purpose leads to that confidence, and then that confidence leads to action. So it's like if you can take the time to properly, that's what's been neat since the post industrial revolution, is that we've had time for contemplation. We're not just inherently trying to survive anymore.
Right.
which has its benefits, it has its detriments as well. In some ways, it can weaken the psyche, but it also gives the person the ability to look inwards and see, well, wait a second, is this actually mine?
Right.
Right?
True.
That,
Yeah.
that process of discernment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
discernment also has this like beautiful form too, is that when you're able to practice discernment, you create space for the yes. So like when we know what things to say, when we start to learn about what things to say no to, then the thing that's the most yes comes our way. But it won't even get to us unless we can like be like, oh no, this is a distraction. Oh no, this is kind of pulling me in the direction that's gonna put me to my dark side.
Right.
Oh, this is
Yeah.
gonna like fulfill my lust or my greed or my
Yeah.
ego.
The Celtics are on tonight. I should probably get hammered.
Sometimes you gotta
Yeah,
get
yeah.
yo, when Steph Curry hits that like 3-point mode or like Tom Brady's in the flow or whatever, it's like it's actually I see God in those spaces. Like I see the
Right.
spirituality in
Yeah,
that.
in the
So
flow state.
sometimes it
Yeah.
works, you know?
Yeah, no, I think it's really important to understand. I think know thyself, right, is the beginning of freedom, right? Because when you know yourself, that's when you can actually be free. But if you don't know yourself, all you're doing is exploring things that aren't you, looking for how you can best be yourself and then be better and break that, Because a lot of people thinking like, is astrology going to tell me what I'm supposed to do? I'm like, yes, but it's actually more your strengths, right? Strength and weaknesses, and
Yeah.
how are you going to do? What are you going to do with it? Because once you know all that, you don't have excuses. You can't just go, oh, I can't do that. Well, actually, you should. You can. That's part of your genetics. So that's part of your, spiritual mission, right? And so I feel like
By
we
the way,
wrote our
Charlie,
own.
hold on. He made a VR astrology game.
Oh, yeah?
It's really dope. So just giving that preference that he is a student of astrology and how to make it in a game, gamifying.
Oh, I love that. I love
Yeah. And so the idea is really, and it could be it could be astrology, but it could be human design. It could be kind of any kind of system that teaches you about who you are, right? Because then when you play a game, you're trying to basically build that character, which is you. So in a way, because I think there's a lot of place where people have also gone astray with the idea like kill the ego, and it's like what the ego is still part of you. Like, why is everybody killing the ego? Like, and this is where like when we've gone through social structure where like they tell us that kill the puzzle piece so that you become the normal square box that everybody is, right? And that's why I'm like right now it's like it's like know thyself. Self-empowerment is really a big point of view right now, because the more people can be themselves, right, is when we're going to get more the creative, innovative ideas of how to be whatever, right?
And
To be ourselves.
your ability as a human bullshit detector goes through the roof.
Exactly.
Because you know what is right for you, and that person is less malleable. They're not so easily manipulated, because it's like, no, okay, I see you. That's cool. That's cool for you. I know what's right for me, and
Yeah.
you're not in a place where you can be as manipulated.
Exactly. And there's great way to say it too. It's like, oh, that's cool for you, but they're like, you don't, it's not for me. And because a lot of people don't know how to communicate that. And they're like, well, you know what? Yours sucks, mine's better. You're like, dude, like you coexist. I don't know why you're making it sound like we can't coexist.
Exactly. You're a heart cell. I'm a liver cell, dude.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. All the organs.
And it also does it because you become less beholden to anyone else's dogma, and you know what feels right for you. Because again, then it's in the body. Like I know what feels right for me. So if somebody wants to come up and start an argument with me, I'm usually just like, yeah, you're right. Cool. I don't care. Like I don't need to prove to you that I'm right. I know it feels right for me, and so that's enough.
Yeah, and I think on the note of like that note, I'm gonna go there and say like it's been interesting how like that aspect of the man who can be humble at the beginning of a conversation, who can recognize that they might be wrong and they can change their mind at the beginning of, but still not being like a pushover. Like I'm not saying pushover, but actually being more of a like open to being wrong, but also steadfast in principle.
Confident.
Confident.
Yes. Yeah.
A person who is super rooted in their purpose need not conflate someone else's truth nor deny someone else's truth. Like I don't have the truth. I have my slice of the truth, and if I can stick to like knowing what my slice of the truth is, and to live as like clearly and authentically from that space, then I've won the game. Period. You know,
Yeah.
like then there's no like trying to prove it. You already did it. You are it.
Yes, exactly.
It's like it's a different kind of gym. It's a social emotional gym, you know, that we
Yeah.
have to practice. We have to
But like
practice.
here, I think that's a really good point that you make though, that it's not then you're a pushover. Because
Right.
some people would say, well, like, oh, then what? You're not going to stand up for what you believe is right, and it's not that. I fundamentally disagree with that. What it is, it's a place of peace. You know, whereas like there's so much like look for stimulus response where it's like, no, I'm coming from a place of center, just from a place of being okay.
Yeah.
That's it. Like,
Yeah.
what if you're neutral? If you're neutral instead of is always response, if you're neutral is just okay, I'm good. I know what I have to do. It doesn't mean the road's going to be easy. Like that's the other thing about like this idea of surrender.
Oh yeah.
Surrender doesn't mean you like lay on the couch and then you're just not doing anything.
Right. Yeah.
Surrender can still have a lot of really rocky waves that come in. You know, it's not a path of least resistance. It's a path of purpose. And that path of purpose is a place where it's like, dude, you can take it to the 10th degree would to be to say like I'm willing to die for this. You know, like I'm willing to die for this because I know that this is my truth.
Yeah.
And I find like that's where I think we get most of our power, right? You know, even as a man, it's like in that truth, you get so much power to stand fast with your own beliefs, right? Because a lot of times, like people talk about how, like, you know, what it is to be masculine. It's like, you know, I think it's because we can stand firmly in our belief while still understanding that there's different points of view and we're not saying, oh, those don't matter, right? You know, because a lot of times people are like, you got to pay attention to me, you know? And I think a lot of times when we're getting the toxic masculinities, because they don't know who they are. So they're acting out, trying to figure out who they are. And I find that the ones who are secure with themselves, confident, they don't need to express anything because like they're not on a show. They don't need to prove themselves to anybody what's going on. Because a lot of times you could just go, there's no problem here, guys. This conversation is over. And then you just like, you know, and
you don't see top MMA fighters in bars being loud starting fights.
exactly.
You know?
Right. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they know that they could F anybody in that place up and they don't have to.
Yeah, and we as like men need to start like maybe need is not the right word. It would be beautiful for us to start to like experiment with that emotional aikido, right? To like actually like practice like having conversations with people we don't agree with, leaning into that more, right? And like because we're also learning. I mean, for you, you're dude. By the way, he's a really awesome working actor, right? He's like you're gonna see him on a lot of commercials, like national commercials and everything. But you know, that being said, we when we learn different people and we like learn about them and their perspective and philosophy, it enhances our humanity. Like we literally, as an actor, you enhance, but like we also all enhance by like taking in new perspectives.
Oh yeah, that's a danger that's happening right now. I think we can all acknowledge like this need for echo chambers. You know, during this like couple year period during COVID, there's been again that push for divisiveness, but people have fallen into it on their own accord to say like, oh, if I disagree with you, block, unfollow, unfriend, delete, because I don't want to see that. I don't like the stuff you're putting out. Let me cut it off. You know, and that's really dangerous.
I got deleted a lot, dude.
I know. I got censored so much in the last year and a half. Can you show him this is just perfectly gorgeous right now? We have to
I'm gonna get an image with Adam.
look at this sunset.
Ooh, beautiful.
Oh my God.
Nice.
Right?
I miss that California sunset on the beach.
You're in Texas, right?
Yeah, I'm in
Yes.
Texas. Houston.
My brother's in Houston.
He said his
Your
brother's in Houston.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where in Houston?
He's like North Houston.
Oh yeah, I'm kind of north-ish.
Nice. Yeah, I make it to Houston every couple months or so. I'll be there soon.
Yeah. Let me know. Indy's
Yeah.
trying to come too, right?
Oh,
Indy,
do a trip out to
come
Houston.
I'm
visit. Come
actually
visit.
doing a laughter thing at a breastfeeding conference. So I gotta go to Texas.
Yes.
So yeah, it's all the doulas, the nurses, all the like social workers that like help women with breastfeeding. I'm gonna be doing sharing laughter with them. It's at University of Texas Austin, June.
Woo.
So
man-
if anybody wants to laugh more and have better breast milk, I will have more evidence.
You know, I don't think I have any science behind this, but I bet you if you laugh more, your breast milk tastes better.
We can
No,
do an
it-
experiment.
You know, Indy, there's a French cheese called the Laughing Cow. Have you seen those?
Yeah.
So right, it's a cow that's laughing. That's why the cheese tastes so much better. So it's the same thing. The baby's milk tastes so much better when it's laughing. The
Never tried it.
vibrations, right? Frequencies.
If you know any moms out there that are willing to do the experiment, please reach out.
Oh man.
Laughing milk. I love that.
Yeah, laughing milk.
So I'm not sure how long we have here, but like let's wrap up soon so we don't run out. But like let's end with some thoughts. Like what are first of all, Adam, can you share like how people, if they're in LA, or how they can join, or is there a way to connect with this group that you guys do?
Yeah, absolutely. On Instagram, you can find me at just Adam Dorsey 1, just my name, ADAMDORSEY, and then the number 1. That's where I do post most of my stuff. And then we have a page that I post through, and you can find my website at humanpermissionslip.com. Those are the two main places that you can find me. The name of the men's group is Brothers Men's Group. We meet once a month in Los Angeles. And anyone who's interested, I would just say like reach out to me on Instagram, and I'll get you all the details from there.
Nice.
That's my plug.
Awesome.
Um,
Thank you, Adam.
And then like any other like thoughts, or Charlie, any comments or anything?
No, I
Yeah.
can't think of anything at the moment. Yeah, this was a great conversation. I mean, it really brought up a lot of really cool stuff, and I hope that there are more men's group trying to work together and find ways to kind of come together in local communities, right, and support each other, because I think that it's a good time right now to have us kind of work together and develop new social concepts, right, that are better than the cultural programming we've been raised with.
Right. And we are looking to expand and to start doing some retreats, and to also bring those retreats to other locations. And so, tune in for that sort of stuff. We also do some retreats called art washings, which are
There's fun guys and fun girls and all kinds of
fun guy.
Yeah. No, we definitely out here too, Texas. Definitely there's a very interesting community out here in Houston, Texas. So
Texas.
yeah.
With Matthew McConaughey.
We're trying to get some land out here, right? Get some land so we can do our own retreats there too. Trying to get some land out here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's the next step, is to start doing some of those. I'm super interested in that. That feels very much like in harmony with where I want to take this, is to start doing some weekend things. So it'll be coming up soon. And like I said, just follow me on Instagram. We'll keep it going.
Great. Thank you, Adam.
Here, we can keep it on. Hold on. We'll keep it on, and we'll do this. We'll end it with Adam. You want to play this?
Yeah.
Nice. Hi guys. It was great seeing you guys. I'll see you soon.
Likewise.
Thank you, Charlie.
Nice to meet you, Adam. Bye.
Bye, Charlie.
Charlie, I bit my finger.